Once again, good morning. So this is a very short lecture on how do we write our chapter 3 or our research methodology, ensuring that we are very detailed and ensuring that we minimize problems encountered when we do data collection. And this lecture will also be based upon my experience as a researcher, as well as a panel member for many masters and doctoral students I have sat as a member of the panel. Okay, so our chapter 3 often has these components. So research design, research setting, sampling scheme, data collection, data analysis, and ethical consideration. While this is the general components, each study is unique in its own right. And that typically depends on the research design. Remember, in the last, I think in our MMR course, in our mixed methods research course, and even I think in this course, I gave you a skeleton outline, right? It's a skeleton outline depending on the kind of design that you did. Ako naghimuan to, I was the one who prepared it because based from my experience, those are the main components panel members look for when you're presenting a paper or you're doing a research of that kind of research design. So you can also use it as a guide for what components to add in your chapter 3. But in this lecture, we will only revolve around these kasi these are actually common to all research designs. And then yeah, it's just dependent on what you put in each component. Okay, let's talk about research design. Last semester, we had a course on mixed methods research design, and we emphasized that the design often comes last in our conceptualization stage. We should and always begin with a problem. And this problem, as I keep on repeating in our classes, that the problem should not be your problem, but a problem that exists in the literature. Because remember, a doctoral dissertation is a work that contributes to our understanding of certain things. It contributes to the body of knowledge. And how can it contribute if that knowledge already exists? That's why we often look for novelty. And now you have your problem then. The problem can be examined at many different philosophy. We talk about this in our MMR course. We can look at this at constructivist perspective, post-positivist perspective, or we can also look at it at dynamic perspective, depending on the kind of the phase of the research we are in. So pwede sa phase 1, constructivist perspective. And if it's a constructivist perspective, it will guide what kind of design you will be using. So often, if the problem requires a constructivist perspective, then the design would typically be a qualitative design. While if the study has a positivist empirical perspective, then the design would be more of quantitative. So dynamic. It changes depending on the kind of problems and phases your research has. So bottom line, we begin with the problem and then we situate it in a certain frame, we situate it in a certain perspective. That is why if you remember, your chapter 1 in your dissertation begins with background, followed by theoretical framework, and then problem statement. Because that is supposed to be the order. You present your problem with the context of the literature, and then you tell us at what frame, at what theory are you looking at that problem. And then from then, you will be led to the design of your research. Okay? Masabtan? Sige. The research design also is defined as the procedures or the sets of procedures for collecting, analyzing, interpreting, and reporting data. So if you look at this definition, it actually consists of the different phases of your research. You have to be able to describe how you will collect your data, how you will analyze the data, and how you will use that analysis to give meaning to your data and how you will report it. The research design also represents different models for doing research. So meaning whether what model you're following, like for example, you wanted to look at an independent dependent variable model where a certain variable, your independent variable, predicts the outcome, will influence the outcome of your dependent variable. So therefore, your research procedures should be anchored on that empirical format that a certain independent variable influences the dependent variable. And if you're doing exploratory sequential, for example, then therefore you have to uh, characterize in your research design how the qualitative component. Sorry, probably my internet got lost. Nawala ko? Nawala? Okay, asa ko dapit nawala? Sige. Okay, sige, we continue. Like for example, if you're doing an exploratory sequential design, how does that model help you and provide you an information of what to expect in the research? For example, exploratory sequential design. So you have to characterize in your research design section of your chapter 3 how the qualitative study or the qualitative component will inform your quantitative component. Or for example, you're doing an intervention, you're introducing a certain tool in a class. So you have to characterize also how the quantitative data will be used. Will it be used to compare the pre-test and the post-test and look at whether there's improvement? So dapat inyo na ma-describe sa research design. Second, you plan to do qualitative data, for example, at the beginning of the research, so that the intervention that you will design is informed by the qualitative characteristics of your participants. Pwede nga na. Or second, you also have a qualitative component during the experiment to provide a complementary data with that of your quantitative experiment to further understand why these things improve or why these things did not improve. And finally, you can also do qualitative study at the end of your experiment to look at how, or you wanted to explain certain certain aspects in the experiment that you were interested in. Like for example, you saw only few students improved in their in a certain variable. For example, in critical thinking, they were only few students, and you wanted to know why, what the reasons could have been. So you do qualitative study at the end of the experiment to explore what could have been the factors helping them improve their critical thinking at the end of the experiment. So that's how we summarize the phases of our study in our research design. So you do not just tell us that your research design as a sequential explanatory design or a sequential exploratory design. You have to provide the readers, especially your panel members, an idea how certain components fit in the bigger picture so that they would understand how each phases are interrelated and how each phases provides information to the next component. And finally, your research design will help you uh, in all of the decisions that you have to make in the tools, techniques, and methods that you will use in the study. So for example, if the study is a qualitative design, then therefore you don't have to do survey because it's a qualitative design. So your data collection technique would be interview, focus group discussions, document analysis, and so on. So it would be completely ironic to do a survey where your design is a qualitative design. Or in some studies I also saw that they claim to be a descriptive study, but they did inferential statistics in their in their research. How were they able to decide what statistics to use nga descriptive man nilang gibutang? So always and always, you have to look at your research design, because your research design should be anchored on, again, the philosophy. So therefore, if the design uh, uh, will lead you to test a certain theory, then probably you would be doing quantitative techniques. Or if you want to explore certain variables, that's quali, then you will be using qualitative data collection techniques. Okay, so here are further definitions of our research design. So how do we write our research design? So it's considered as the framework of your research methods and the techniques chosen by researchers. So therefore, that all the techniques that you will, for example, you're doing qualitative sampling. Oo. Sorry, qualitative design. So therefore, the sampling that you will do will be typically purposive, non-random, because you wanted to explore certain variables. So often, ang imuhag yung sampling technique ana purposive, dili ka pwede mag-random because you're interested in certain things. That's why you want to interview these people, because you know, you believe, and you have good reason and good judgment that they can provide you the information that you need. Like for example, you wanted to look at how teachers view of a certain web application. You wanted to know whether this web application uh, is used by teachers and what could have been the problem or the barriers for their use of this certain application. So you would interview only those teachers whom you believe have experienced that kind of application. So you will not interview any teacher because that teacher might not have any idea of that application. So you have to be purposive, and purposive means non-random sampling. And if you're doing a survey, you wanted to characterize a certain population, whether they are aware or not aware of a certain tool, then you do random because you wanted to generalize your findings to the whole population. That's why you're doing random, because random gives you a better a snapshot of what it is or what the population is. Okay? So always good na the research design will help you, it will lead you to the techniques that you will be using. Okay? It also provides the type of research, and also its subtype. So you remember in our mixed methods, like for example, if you have sequential exploratory, so you have to characterize dayon what subtype of sequential exploratory, or you can also discuss the prioritization or the emphasis of the study. Like this is a sequential exploratory design with qualitative as the emphasis, and quantitative only comes in this manner. So imo na siyang i-foreshadow. You give already the readers an idea what to expect in the paper. And then, the type of research problem will determine the research design and not vice versa. I always tell my students that do not begin with the problems, with the design first, and then fit your research problem to that design, because ultimately that would be faulty, since the problem now is not based on a gap in the literature, but rather the problem is based on your preferred design. And often that would not be novel. Ako na nangingon ka ganina, the design phase of a study determines which tools to use and how they are used. Okay, so I presented this in our previous lecture. I will no longer talk about this. So remember lang, very importantly, that all components of your research should be anchored on your research questions. It should address the goals of your study, would be anchored on the research question. The conceptual framework and the theoretical framework would always be anchored in the research questions, and the methods will be based on your research questions, and how you establish the accuracy and validity of your results will also depend on your research question. Okay, so how do we write our research design? So often this is our technique. So we begin with a purpose statement, the techniques we are employing, the methodology, the setting, our analysis method, and our limitations. So for example, purpose statement, you talk about what the design is, istorya. So this study will utilize this kind of design and then break it down into techniques and methodology. So for the qualitative, I will be doing phenomenology, while for the quantitative, I will be doing survey kind of design. And then you talk about the analysis method. How are the two components, the quali and the quanti, interrelated? The quali will be the basis for the development of questions that I will ask in the quanti, or the quali will be used as basis in the design of the intervention I want to do. Or quanti, baliktad. In the quanti, the data that the results in the quanti will help me identify whom to quali, will help me identify the participants whom I will ask about the results of the quanti. So yun nga na, that's the analysis methods. And then finally, often, although this is not required, but a panel will appreciate this and journals will also appreciate this when you are able to describe as well the limitations of your design. Like for example, you did focus group, you did phenomenology. So what are the limitations of phenomenology for your quali? And if you did survey, and this is just your sample, what are the limitation of that? And if you're planning to do this kind of statistics, what will be the limitation of that? 1 to 2 sentences of limitation per design would be sufficient already. So remember, we have a lot of research designs you can use. So pardon me for the poor quality of the photo, but this is the only photo I saw on the social, on not social media, on Google, that encapsulates many of the designs we use now. So for example here, this is various research designs, quali, quanti, and even mixed methods. So for quali, for example, grounded theory. So this is your main research design, and this is the what we call as the subtype. Systematic design, emerging design, constructivist design, or if you're doing narrative, qualitative design. So is it a biography, a life history, theoretically oriented design, a qualitative description, or if it's an experimental design, is it a true experimental design, a quasi-experiment, or a pre-experimental, or a single system, or one-shot research design? Or for example, you're doing mixed methods. What kind of design will you be using? Sequential, concurrent, and transformative, and so on. So yung nga na siya dapat inyong pag-discuss. You begin with the general research design. Is it a quali, or a quanti, or a mixed methods? And then if it's a quali, what kind, what subtype, what subvariant, and so on. So technique in writing a design in a research report. First, identify the type of design, provide its definition, and then what is the intent of your design and the reason for choosing that design, and how does that design relate to the theory or the conceptual framework that you have established at the beginning of your study. So will it test the theory? Will it explore the theory? Will it build a theory? And so on. So you have to clarify that in your research design. Next, it should also provide you with the basic procedures, katong steps, the phases that I mentioned, so that you already foreshadow your participant or your readers of the different phases of your study. Okay, additional considerations in choosing a research design. I mentioned this in our mixed methods of research course. Always look at the intent of the design, if that design is really appropriate for the gap that you have identified. Second, your familiarity. So if you're not familiar, at least your advisor is familiar. Or if your advisor is not familiar, at least you have someone to consult for this kind of designs. your expertise as well, and the amount of time. So remember, when doing dissertations, we do not aim to win Nobel Prize. We aim to graduate. So that's why we do something that we can do. And at the same time, also contribute to the body of knowledge. Okay? Di naman pwede always limited to what you can do lang. Okay? How will you grow if you are only limited to the things you are comfortable with? And then, finally, it should also be at certain level of complexity for the degree that you wanted to earn. So if you want to do a master's thesis, then that would require you to uh, test theories. But remember, you're doing a doctoral degree, and we would require you to contribute to the existing body of knowledge. And yeah, that is a very important consideration in the design that we do. That is why often doctoral students would do mixed methods, because mixed methods provide a better picture than any kind of design. Okay, because you're combining the strengths and addressing the weaknesses of quantitative and qualitative design. Okay, now we go to research setting. This is the second component of your what do you call this, your chapter 3. So the research setting is the physical, the social, cultural, or the experimental context within your research is conducted. So you have to remember that it's not just the physical. Okay, often we read papers, especially you, because you're doing science education researches. Do not just give a map of your study, and that's already the research setting, because you have to remember the geographical location of your study will not hold any bearing in your study unless, for example, you're comparing kind of distance from the city center. So pwede you can show a map. But if it does not give any kind of a certain level of analysis that the map is important, then don't show maps. Because we're more interested of the social and the cultural context. So, for example, we studied there was a study I was part of. We look at teenage pregnancy and how family relationship was affected by teenage how family relationships affect the incidence of teenage pregnancy in El Salvador City. So I was commissioned to do that project, to lead that project, and uh we saw that family relationships don't matter if you are in an urbanized barangay. While if you are in a rural barangay, family relationships matter. What do we mean by that? So we look at how having family members who were teenage pregnant, and the incident of you being a teenage pregnant. And we saw that in rural barangays, those who have family members who were teenage pregnant have higher chances of being teenage pregnant as well, because we saw that access to information, we saw kind of itong tribal quote unquote behavior being normalized. Okay, it's something normalized in the culture. Okay, we often see our relatives, our neighbors having or being teenage pregnant, so probably it's normal. But when we saw the data from urbanized barangays, we did not see any relationship and effect. So whether you have relatives, siblings, and so on who were teenage pregnant, it did not, because we believe that being in an urbanized barangay, you have access to more information, and probably as well contraceptives which they can use. So so here we see that there is an how there is sorry an important context the research setting could provide in the study. Not just a description. So we look at how the economic side of this area affected. Oh, how sorry, we also describe the economics of this area. We also describe some characteristics of this setting that will help us understand our data later. But do not give too much information. Taas na kayo mong research setting, 5 pages. No, do not give too much information if those information will not be used later in the analysis of your result. Okay? Because as I mentioned earlier, the research, I have foreshadowed earlier that the research setting is crucial in our interpretation of our results. Okay? Like the one I shared earlier. So what do you write in your research setting? One, it should include the location of the study, the current context or situation, like the geography, if it matters, and so on. And then you can also describe the culture, for example, the demographics of that location, because that would also be important in the analysis, and so on. Some important characteristics that you believe will influence your results. Because your discussion on where the research was conducted will help you, will give you some insights of your results later. Okay? Sige, let's continue. The next section of your chapter 3 is the sampling scheme and participants of the study. Often this is broken into 2 sections, which you can also do. But some, they combine it because when they do sampling scheme, they already describe the participants of the study. But since you're doing a mixed method study, it would be good that you break this down, because for the participants of the study, each phase of your study have different participants. Diba? For quali component of your study, you have different participants. For the quanti, you have different participants. You have to describe them each for the different phases of your study. The same with your sampling scheme. Your phase 1 would require, for example, you're doing quali, so your sampling would require purposive sampling, probably a snowball method. Or and for example, your second phase is quanti, that then you would require random sampling. So you would also describe that in detail. So I would suggest that this is broken down into 2 different components, especially that you're doing mixed methods research. Okay, how do we do this? It is a detailed description of what data will be obtained and how this will be done. And that's for the sampling scheme. And then for the participants of the study, it's a description of who the participants are, as their characteristics heavily affect the results. Like, for example, you're interviewing the teachers, because the that's your participants for the first phase. You have to describe them. What's the criteria for selecting them? Like, you will only be interviewing chemistry teachers with at least 5 years of experience, who are already regular, who have this and that, they have master's units, and you have to justify why that's your criteria. Why you believe that criteria will help you identify participants that will inform your study most. I remember often in many of the undergraduate research as I mentor, they are on game-based learning, and journals often ask us who the participants are. So they want to describe the competencies. Like, for example, the participants are grade 9 students. They're expected to master this competency based on the curriculum of K-12. They're expected to be of this certain level. They are ages 14 to 16. You have to describe that, because the age also affect whether they engage in games or not. Diba? So that's also important. For example, you will be introducing a web application or a certain mobile application and so on. So the age would also matter, because whether they're receptive or not receptive to the intervention that you will introduce would be greatly affected by their age. Are they digitally native? Are they digitally native? Or are they digitally nomads? And so on. So you have to describe that as well. So what should it include? It should include, for the sampling scheme, you should include, for example, if it's a quantitative, you have to describe the study population, from where your sample will be taken. So meaning, why is this important? Because the sample, the generalizations that we get from the sample is generalized to the population. So you have to consider who your population is. Like for example, you're interested in looking at the behavior of chemistry teachers, but your population only refers to the Misamis Oriental chemistry teachers. Then therefore, the findings that you will get will only be generalizable to the Miss or teachers and not to the whole uh, Philippines for that matter. This is for the quantity, okay? Especially when you're doing uh, sampling technique for a non-random a random sampling technique for the quantity component. And you will also be discussing the sampling technique that you will use in your study. Like sa tatong gingon, if it's a quantity, then your sampling technique should represent the principles of quantitative design. If it's a quantitative design, then how did you select your sample? Was it random or not? Or if the for the qualitative phase, how did you do purposive sampling? What was your inclusion and exclusion criteria? The same with, for example, for Mama Maria, she's doing document analysis. So your quote unquote your sample here are the different documents, right? So what will be your inclusion and exclusion criteria? Will you be including memorandums only? Will you be looking at training designs, training programs? Will you also be looking at training sa tawag na, training guide or sa training lecture notes of the trainers and so on. So you have to describe your inclusion and exclusion criteria, particularly for the quali component. Because balik-balik na ko na ginaingon, for the quali component, you have to clarify, you have to justify who your participants are and why you believe they are the best participants to inform your study. And then you can also describe your entry protocol. Like for example, for Ma'am Christine, she's doing interview with teachers, but Ma'am Christine, so how did you access them? Did you write a letter to will you proposal pa man di ay. Will you be writing a letter to the school's division superintendent, to the research coordinator, and then to the principal, and then to the teachers? Or for example, for Mama Maria, like how did you access those memoranda? Oh, did you write a letter to the tawag sa DepEd record section or sa ba their administration section where you acquired all the certified true copy of the memorandum and so on and so forth. So that is your entry protocol, and that should be clearly described in your sampling scheme. And very important, each phase na sila kaugalingong sampling scheme. So kung dili magay ninyo bulagon, at least kada paragraph. So kaninga paragraph, this will describe the quali, and kaninga paragraph, this will describe the quanti sampling scheme. Okay. And then for the research participants, ako na ning gi-mention ka ganina, you have to describe who your participants are, your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Okay? Next, your data collection techniques and your research instruments. So in my undergrad students, often this is combined, but since for a doctoral dissertation, it's complex, so you can break it down into two sections. You have a data collection procedures and a research instrument. So for data collection procedure, it's just the process of gathering and measuring information in a systematic fashion that will enable you to answer your research questions, test hypotheses, and evaluate outcomes. So step by step, like what do you do first? You do quali. From that, you go to the participants, you interview them. After interviewing, you feed them and so on. Or before you interview them, you tell them what you call this, the objectives of the study, you explain to them and you ask them whether they're interested or not, and if they're not interested, they can freely kanang go out and so on. Step-by-step procedure for data collection, how you collected your data. And then research instruments, research instruments, this will include what your research instruments are. You describe them in detail and why you, kani pinaka-importante, malimtan sa kasagaran, when you choose research instruments, you have to clarify why you believe it's appropriate for your sample. Often, gakalimtan na siya. Kay, naiuban nga, what do you call this? They're using a certain instrument and they applied it to this group. For example, it's a test for critical thinking, but the test was based on US standards, and then it was used to Filipino students. Then it's not appropriate. Diba? Or, I remember there's a trending video on Facebook. I even shared it. A Filipino psychologist, no, she was saying there was a study done before where they used schizophrenia instrument. It's an instrument they used to pilot it to Filipinos, and tingala sila, the results were all had moderate to mild schizophrenia. But dili tinuod. Just simply because ingani ang culture sa Filipinos, di ba, ang Filipinos have difficulty of saying no. We often say yes. Oh. So, because of that culture, na-categorize ang Filipinos as schizophrenic based on that instrument. And the bottom line here is that instrument is not appropriate for the cultural context of Filipinos. So you would have to explain, when you do research instrument, you have to explain the reliability and the validity measures you have implemented to ensure that your instruments are appropriate for your respondents. So for reliability, daghan kayo ni inter-rater reliability, item consistency, daghan kayo klaseng reliability. So you have to look at the reliability measures for the kind of design that you will be using. Validity, so how, or for quali, we call it authenticity. So you also have to describe how you ensure that the answers are authentic. Like for example, you're doing interview. After doing interview, you did transcribing. After transcribing, you did coding and then develop the themes. And from that, how did you ensure that those were really authentic? In some qualitative material references, they would do member checking. What's member checking? You go back to your participants and you ask them if this is what they really meant. These are the themes that you have generated, and are these what you meant in your answers? So we call that member checking, and that's very important to ensure authenticity in the qualitative design. For the quantitative design, daghan pug katagabuhaton. Katong kung survey na ay KR20, KR21, unsa pa na, Cronbach coefficient alpha. For inter-rater, you have Cohen's kappa, Fleece kappa. Unsa pa gali na? Yeah, kana mga inter-rater agreement. Like for example, if you do rubric ang imo instrument, so you have to do inter-rater reliability. If your raters are reliable, they're consistent, motong you do Cohen kappa or Fleece kappa as a inter-rater reliability. Then laboratory equipment if you're doing lab, and then data gathering procedure. So for your data gathering procedures, katong data collection or data gathering procedures, you can split this into subsections. Like for example, your development phase, pilot testing phase, evaluation phase, or phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and so on. Para klaro. Mas may man ang cluster na daan imong procedures kay para kabalo ka unsay imong una buhaton. And it should also reflect your problem statement. Because often, our problem statements are organized or structured in chronological order. Often, no? So, dapat atong data collection naka-follow pud adto. Next, data analysis. Oo. Data analysis is how you plan to analyze your data. So, if you're doing mixed methods, so quali and quanti will have different kinds of data analysis techniques. So for quali, nagsugod kang quali, so your data analysis should begin with quali. How do you plan to analyze? Oh, so muna i-describe dito ang procedures, how to do data analysis for quali. Phase 1. Phase 2, nag-quanti ka. So mo data analysis. Phase 3, merging. Oh, how did you look at the gaps? So did you do mapping? Did you do for example, kang Ma'am Christine, instrument development. So what analysis techniques did she use so that from the quali statements, you could generate item pool? O, unsa man ang steps? Unsa yung data analysis techniques ana? So basa na sad ka or ka Ma'am Maria from the module from the memos and the perceptions of the teachers, how did you synthesize that information? So nagmap ba ka, naghimo ba ka og map, nag concept mapping and so on, mo bang gi compare, mo bang gi rank sa mo mga data analysis adto nga gipangbuhat. And very importantly kani you have to describe the assumptions and the limitations of your data analysis. If you're, for example, doing regression or structural equation modeling, so you have to ensure that the assumptions of that statistics are met by your sample. Nag-SEM ka, pwede mong participants, 10 ra day ka buok. 10 ra ka buok, so it does not fit. Or you did ANOVA, but your samples are not normally distributed. So why are you using parametric tests for a non-parametric data? So you have to do assumptions checking because that would help establish the scientific rigor of your results. And the data analysis could also include coding and data cleaning, data transformation techniques. Like for example, if you convert quali into quanti or quanti into quali, ito nang lesson sa atong MMR, and then statistical analysis, kani pinaka-importante, assumptions, the softwares you utilize to treat your data. Did you use in vivo or you just used Excel for your quali or unsa ba dira and so on. And then your plan on data presentation. How will you present the data at what certain level of significance and so on. Finally, the last part of your chapter 3, mamanata, is your ethical consideration. So ethical considerations just outline the principles that will help guide your research designs and practice. Why do we put ethical consideration? Because very importantly, an ethical research is an unsound research. If your research is unethical, then your research is unsound. Okay? If your research is unethical, then it is not a valid research. Mugina inyong i-remember. That is why we have to set principles that will help you guide your research. So what do we consider for ethical considerations? Number one, we have to ensure that the rights of the research participants are protected. Second, it enhances our research validity. And then finally, it maintains the scientific integrity of our research. So, you have to look at the principles of ethics, kanang maleficence, benevolence, and so on. Nagana sila mga principles of ethics that we have to consider. Like we have to make sure that our participants are not harmed or they get benefit from this research and so on. So you can look at examples online how to write your ethical considerations. Okay? So here are some things you can talk about. Voluntary participation, informed consent if they're adults. If they are minors, we call it assent form. Okay? Assent form. Assent form. And then the principles of anonymity, confidentiality, potential for harm, and how will the results be communicated. Kay sa quali, may tabo kay naisay instances nga kana bitong the quali data provides clue on who the participants were. Like for example, imong quali kay a master teacher from Upol National High School teaching science. So kailan may kakinsa na. But you can easily identify because you have descriptors. Master teacher, taga Upol, yung tudlog science. May hap naman na sila. Then, for example, you talk about their married life. So kinsa may minyo nga master teacher nga taga Upol, then you can easily identify them. And that is unethical. So you have to establish also what kinds of data will you be presenting in your results to help hide, to ensure anonymity of your participants and so on. Makakita mo dagan examples ani online. Okay? And yeah, informed consent if they're adults, and if it's minors, it's assent form. Okay? I think that ends the lecture unless you have question.